Hi, this is Barry Loveland. I'm chair of the LGBT Center of Central Pennsylvania History Project. And we're coming to talk to you today a little bit about the history of gay bars particularly in Harrisburg. Um, and our history project has a series of digital exhibits online now. And one of those exhibits is the history of LGBTQ bars in the Central Pennsylvania area. So I thought what I would do today is give you just a brief tour of the Harrisburg section of that exhibit. And then you'll see where this lives, and you can go take a look for yourself and explore more information about Central PA's bars from various time periods. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here. There's an introductory page about the gay bars in the area. I'm going to quickly run through just a few of these screens. There is a timeline which you can go through, which will cover all of the bars throughout Central PA. And that timeline stretches over several decades, as you can see here. I'm not going to give you a complete tour of that, but you can take a look at that for yourself. As you can see, it's fairly lengthy, has a lot of different bars listed. So we're going to concentrate today on the bars in Harrisburg. And we've got maps of Harrisburg City and the surrounding area, which you can again explore and see where all these bars are located. There's some maps also of Lancaster, and there's one of York. So then we talk about particular bars that existed in the area. And the first one we're going to talk about here. The first bar that really was a gay bar in Harrisburg was the Clock Bar. And the Clock Bar opened in 1938 by George Dare, and the Dare family owned the bar through quite a few decades and also on some subsequent bars as well. It was run by his son, Stuart, and Stuart's wife, Mary, for a while. So 1938 was right after, pretty close to right after Prohibition ended. And so it was one of the first bars that opened up again after Prohibition. It was called the Clock Bar because it had a lot of clocks on the walls that told the different time zones of different places around the world. So it got that name. This is a picture of the front of the Clock Bar with George Dare shown in these white shirt with suspenders and the hat. He owned it for pretty much its whole existence until 1965. And the Clock Bar really was about the only game in town for a while. We're not sure exactly when gay people started going to the Clock Bar, whether it was right after it opened or whether it took a while before it caught on as a gay bar. But certainly by the 1950s and perhaps even the 40s, it was known to have a pretty much exclusive gay following. Bars were a lot different at that time. You had very strict rules. It was illegal really to serve alcohol to known homosexuals. So people in the bar had to be very cautious about approaching other men in the bar. You couldn't dance, you couldn't hold hands, you couldn't really touch other people in any way. So it was very carefully orchestrated so that you would not be susceptible to an arrest by a plainclothes officer. The Clock Bar was raided in 1965. It was caught up in a series of raids that were happening on State Street area and also with the Clock Bar. They arrested people and printed their names in the newspaper. And of course, that led to a lot of people losing their jobs, losing their contact with their families and friends and so forth. So it was a very traumatic experience for people who were involved at that time, and it led to the closure of this particular iteration of bars at this location. The reason why I say that is you're going to see in a minute that this location at 400 North 2nd Street was a series of gay bars right up until 1990. So there was a lot of, as I mentioned, the raids happening in 1965. There was these articles that appeared in the Patriot News at the time, and there's the notice there about the Clock Bar losing its license. And it was charged with maintaining a disorderly house and permitting solicitations of patrons for immoral purposes, which basically just meant that they were involved in serving homosexuals drinks. As a result, there were, that bar closed, but in about a year later, in 1966, the 400 Club opened at the same location. Again, it was owned by the same family, and it was an attempt to get a fresh start and reopen in that location. It was fairly short-lived, and then closed in 1974. And then the same location became the Apple and the Frenchman, owned by Al Apple and Chuck Clement. That was quite short-lived, and only about a year and a half. And in 1975, the Apple and the Frenchman closed and came back to the Dare family and was named the Dandelion Tree. And then in 1978, the location was sold to John Koch, who opened the La Rose Rouge. And La Rose Rouge was one of only a couple of bars in Harrisburg at the time. The Neptune Lounge was the other. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's a photograph of the La Rose Rouge interior. And the clock on the wall is a vestige of the original Clock Bar. That's one of the clocks that remained. I think the only one that remained throughout the bar's history at that location. Currently, it's a Burger Yum, if you know where that is, on North 2nd Street. So we'll talk about a few other places. Johnny Kobler's, which really wasn't a gay bar until later, but it opened in 1937. And it wasn't until about 1957 is when the bar became a kind of mixed bar, where the gay people congregated toward the back of the bar, and all the straight people congregated toward the front. That bar was in existence for, again, just a few years. In 1961, after Johnny Kobler passed away, his estate sold the bar and it was closed. So there were a series of other bars during this early period in the 1960s. The White Elephant, which we don't have a lot of information about. The Warner Hotel, which was on the square in Harrisburg, had a bar on the first floor, and that bar for a while became an LGBT-friendly bar. It wasn't necessarily a gay bar per se, but had a mixed crowd. And they had a gay bartender for a while, which is why they became a friendly bar. During a number of raids in the 1970s, the bar became less popular and less safe to go to. And then the Plaza Hotel was another building, another hotel building during this period that had a bar on the first floor. And again, there was a gay bartender for a while who invited friends and acquaintances to come and patronize the bar. So it became known then as a gay-friendly bar. It had a very cruisy men's room in the basement. It was notorious for that. And then it had a fire in 1976, February, and the building, well, you can see pictures there of the fire and the aftermath, and the building burned to the ground and was not reopened. It was demolished. And this was right in front of the train station. By the way, you can see the train station behind the hotel there. We do have the only known surviving artifact from Plaza Hotel Bar, which was a stained glass window that was reportedly from the hotel bar, and it's on permanent exhibit at the LGBT Center. The Neptune Lounge was another bar that opened in 1972. This was Jim Bortsfield who purchased it, and it was a bar called the Neptune earlier than that, but became a gay bar in 1972. Lily White and Company, which was a drag troupe, had a number of performances at the bar, particularly in the Paper Moon restaurant part of the bar, which was adjacent to the bar. We have a number of there's a photograph of the outside, and there's one of the matchbooks there. The Neptune was in existence for a total of about 50 years when it closed in 2012. So it was one of the, 40 years. So it was one of the longest running bars in Harrisburg of all time. The Strawberry Inn was another bar from the 70s. It opened in 1979 by Al Kochek. And it was the first real LGBTQ hotel in the area, in the sense that the upper floors were laid out as hotel rooms that were rented to people, visitors and so forth. And one of the upper floor hotel rooms actually became the office of the the gay switchboard of Harrisburg. And so the bar was on the first floor, and unfortunately, the bar had a tragic fire in 1984. So it only lasted about 5 years. There was a known gay bartender who lived up in one of the rooms upstairs. He was killed, unfortunately, in the fire. And the gay switchboard of Harrisburg lost all of its equipment and records in their office up there at the time. So there were a number of other gay bars from the 1970s. Class 1, which was a disco type of mixed bar. The Arc, also from 1974, was down in Steelton, in that area. Club 1031 out on Eisenhower Boulevard, and the Orpheus Bar. We don't, again, have a lot of information on these bars yet. We're still collecting information as time goes on, so we're hopefully going to be able to fill in the exhibit with a lot more material and detail. Turning to the women's community, the Silhouette opened in 1975 as the first lesbian bar in Harrisburg, and in fact, the first lesbian bar outside of the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh areas. So it was an important development for the women's community. A year later, it was sold and bought by Dottie Hale and partners who changed the name to the D-Gem. And the D-Gem was quite popular with the women's community. Men also attended occasionally as well, and it became a very popular bar up on North Front Street, just north of the city. And it lasted until sometime in the 1990s, and the building is now a restaurant and bar called Borough. Some of you may know where that is, up in North Front Street. The Shadows Bar was a bar in the city on 704 North 3rd Street, around the corner from the Neptune, which was on North Street. And this was opened by Larry Wilson, who wanted to expand the options and opportunities for people to meet. So he opened that bar at 904 North 2nd. And we have a number of his materials and collections signed from the inside of the bar, and also matchbook covers and other material. Larry also opened a bar called the Archives Bar, which was directly across from the State Archives. And in 1983, this became one of the larger bars ever in Harrisburg. There was a restaurant, there was a bar, and there was also a dance floor and a large area for mingling. So it was a really good development for the community. There was a lot more space and a lot more ability to be entertained. There's a photograph there of the interior of the restaurant portion. And there's a view of the bar with Larry behind the bar, tending bar. And then in the 1980s, Stallions opened right next to where the Archives was located. The Archives unfortunately closed soon after that because of the competition from the Stallions, which was an even bigger bar. Stallions offered a basement bar, a first level bar and dance floor, and another level bar as well. And at certain points of time, the third floor was open for various kinds of bars, restaurants, various things that were up there in different periods of time. Stallions became kind of the main go-to place in the community because of the large dance floor. It's certainly a place that was popular. Also around this time period in the 1980s, La Cage opened on Forster Street, just around on the other side of the Archives building. And eventually that was closed and reopened and renamed as Pegasus. And that remained for a few years. The Strawberry, which had been down on North 2nd Street. And then after the fire, a new Strawberry was opened in the building at 704 North 3rd, where the Shadows had been, and that closed in 2009. It now is also a gay bar at the 704 Lounge. And then finally, there's a number of bars that come in to a later period of time. Beatles, which was a lesbian bar in 1996. That was again out on Eisenhower Boulevard. That became the Pink Lizard and then became Liquid 891, series of bars at the same location. The Brownstone Lounge, which is open just down the street from Pegasus, is still there. It's been there for about 25 or 26 years, 27 years. And the 704 Lounge It opened in 2010, where the Strawberry had been. Well, that's kind of our tour of the Harrisburg bars. Again, I invite you to take your own view of this history, this digital exhibit, which is at www.centralpalgbthistory.org. And there are many bars throughout central Pennsylvania, and we have a lot of history accumulated on that. And I invite you to tour that. And also, if you're interested in getting involved with the LGBT History Project, Center History Project, please give us a call or email at history@centralpalgbtcenter.org. Thank you.